So I'm sitting here doing this one. I have the Coleman Mach air conditioners on my RV. Actually, I have 3 of them, and I'm getting water inside the rig. These are ducted units, and that's one thing I haven't seen online. Is nobody's showing these guys that are ducted and how they're done. Because we did have a leak. This showed up in our cabinetry. Found a leak. Trying to figure out what was going on. Because I've been up here before. I had cleaned these things and all that, and I found one of the drains. It was clogged. It filled, so I cleaned that off. That was done. Went ahead and then put it all back together because it was draining water. It was just fine. Still getting water inside. Came back and pulled it back open. Looked at it. The pan was draining, but I was getting water inside. So here's I'm pulling one apart now for you. So I've pulled this one apart. This unit, the RV itself, is 9 years old, but this is when I pulled off the cover and all that, the insulation. It's obvious somebody else has been in here before. They had pulled it all apart, but when we look inside, you can see the evidence of water was down there going on. And my tray is clean because you go to this one, and I did drill it out. So I oversized the size of that drain hole that's right there. Now there's a drain hole on the other side. It wasn't easily accessible, so I did not pull the tray out to get down there to pull that whole thing out. I washed it out as best I could at that time, but it was getting water, and when I was running, you could actually see water running down here. So when this thing is put together, this flange is up on the front of it here, so you really can't see what's going on with the front seal or much what's going on. When I pull this off, you can see all sorts of stuff is building up behind it. This is the seal itself, and it's feeling spongy, so that looks to be a problem. I've got it unbolted, but there's definitely movement there. But what I also noted on this is I never used the spacer plate that they provide on the back end of this to hold the back end up off of it. So you have all that weight back there. There's nothing bolting it down. The back bolts are these guys right here, which are midpoint. So you have that weight there pulling down and raising the front up, and this is where I was getting my leak in here. So I went ahead and got a new seal kit. It's sitting right there on top of my skylight. I'm going to pull this thing apart, pull it off, and replace the seal, put a new one in. I'll put the spacers on the back end of this so it actually holds that back end up like it's supposed to be, and then we'll re-bolt this thing down and see what's going on. I was worried about all the wiring and everything else, but in looking at this thing, I've got a simple plug there, and this wire here is my temperature probe, so I'll pull that out. I can just lay those in there. I don't have to do any serious wiring or unwiring, put it that way, to get this apart. So this is the difference. When you got ducted, you don't notice the problem until it's too late. I mean, you can see the water was in there. It was definitely, we're getting water where we definitely didn't, we didn't catch it as soon as somebody would if they would have had the vent directly below and they see it coming out. This is much later, so I'm going to go ahead and get this fixed up first. Then I'm going to have to do some serious looking inside to see how long that water leak had been occurring, and go from there to see what I got to repair on the inside. But got to seal the outside first. But like I said, I just wanted to show this. It's a different type of unit. I've seen my other 2 air conditioners. They are different than this one because basically you can see the difference in the drip pan is different. So I'm going to go ahead and see what's going on here, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now I've pulled off the side cover, and when I pulled it off and I'm looking here, can we see that the condenser right here is laying right up on top of, right onto, I shouldn't say on top of, right up next to, bumping onto it. So any moisture that's wicking down this metal could also then wick over this flange and also be causing a trouble. So when I'm putting this back together, I'll have to figure out how to pull this thing forward, the condenser forward, you know, which is going to be some modifications, because this screw hole here goes through this side panel. So that's going to be holding it back. So I'm going to have to figure out how to modify it so we can actually pull this forward just that little bit to get that gap in there. And we'll go from there. So that's the first thing that I'm seeing. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the drip tray out, see what's going on. I should be able to pick this up, yep, and get enough movement where I can pull the tray out and get that thing cleaned up. Okay, I was able to get it out. Took a little finagling. You know, this side was the easiest because the condenser, your coils are over here where they're wired in. So that's a little tighter side. This is the side I could reach. And like I said, I had cleaned it out. But you can see here, it looks like part of the old insulation. So whoever had it apart before, you know, that insulation had fallen down inside and taken care of it. That hole I couldn't see, and you can see it is plugged. So I'm going to go ahead. I do have a drill bit. I'm going to clean this up. Like I've opened this one up, I'm going to go ahead and open that one up so it has a little easier time to drain out. And it has a choice of going out either side and not just one side or the other. Got a whole lot of cleaning up inside of here to do, as you can see. It's a pretty good mess. So let me go ahead and get that cleaned up and we'll get it put back together. So I've cleaned up the tray. I went ahead and, like I said, I drilled out the other side also, like I'd done this one. One of the things I noticed that when you drilled it, it actually burrs up the plastic. So it cleaned off all the burrs, so that would take care of that. And then we slipped it back in. I've cleaned up the front end, basically removing all the anything that will hold moisture. You know, there's a little bit of dirt, I ain't worried about it. But I did get the insulation out of there and everything else. I've now unplugged it and I've removed my temperature probe, put it out in there, so I can go ahead and we're going to pull this unit off now and replace the seal below it. It's one of the things I'm looking at doing. So we'll clean it up, I'll do this. Okay, so now to continue on, I just simply had to pull this bolt here and this bolt here, and you can see the flanges, and that came right up. So I'm looking at this thing, and it rained last night, and this thing is all sopping wet. So that's where the moisture was getting through. You can see it getting through there. It was also getting through here. The other thing is the way this thing was installed, or is installed, I don't think we have a choice. You can see just how little of this seal is being used for. You're not using the full depth of it. But that's definitely right there where the water was coming through. And if we come down here and look, we can see the tracks also right there. That's where the moisture was getting through, and you can see just what was going on. But again, there's just a little bit of the flange still on there. But it came in, it comes underneath. This brings up where I'm looking to do this different than what 90% of the people have shown the way to do this. Because what they're showing is you take this off, and that's a seam right there too, it's a bad one, and you stick it back on there. There's one side of these things that has adhesive and the other side does not. This is the side you're seeing does not have the adhesive. Well, you're adhesing this thing to a point where if it leaks, you have serious trouble because you have the depth of that, it has to get up. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to go ahead and clean this whole area up around. You get it all cleaned up and nice. I'm going to stick it down to this. So the adhesive on the seal is going to be sticking to the roof of the RV to stop that water from being, or removing another possibility for water to seep underneath and get inside. Because if I have that sealed, then that takes care of that problem, or should eliminate that problem. It also gives me the point to being able to maybe to put some Dicor on this, or some that lap sealant you put onto these things. Yeah, it is Dicor. To put that on, put the seal down, maybe put a bead of caulk around it so that can sit in there, and then put the AC back up on top of it. Since I already have my mounting points, that should not be an issue then as far as relining everything back up. I don't have an indention until the very back and the bottom where this is elevated right there. That could cause any kind of a problem. So that's what I'm going to do. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's my thought. And I noticed there is a block there, but the block ain't tall enough. Because I know in the kit they offer us 2 different blocks. So I'm going to go ahead and put the bigger block on there instead. So that'll make that thing stand up taller. And get more spacing. Because like I said, when that was in there, you can see the difference in heights. See how thick that is? And then this one down here is indented. It's inside of the same level of metal as that is, but that's nowhere near as thick. Therefore, it allows the back end to settle down and lifting up on the front. And then like I said, you're sitting with these center hinge points, so it just allows the thing to pull backwards. So we're going to go ahead and fix that too. Apologize that I'm not filming this as I do it. My wife has a major aversion to heights. Even when we're going around seeing the countryside, she won't stand up to a railing to look over the edge, no matter how solid the railing is. So I'm up here by myself, and that's why we'll do, you'll see the takes as they are. So I'm going to go ahead and get this off, the seal. I'm going to go ahead and get all this cleaned up. I'm going to put the new seal down here, and I'm going to put the bigger block down there to hold up the back end and make this thing set level. So I'll start off, let me go ahead and get this going. So I got ahead and got the other seal scraped off, cleaned up. And while I was doing this, the worst thing you can imagine to happen happened. Mother Nature decided to open up and let it rain. So I had already predetermined I was going to stick this down to the roof. I did. Just before I put it down, just before I had to leave, and then I set the AC on it, and then put the shroud back over it to cover it. Nothing was bolted down, and even though the water was over here, with that seal stuck down like that, no new water found its way down inside this cavity. So that, to me, is worthwhile. If I ever had to replace the seal again, it'll be a bugger to get up. I know that. That's the one downside to this thing, being it's a fiberglass roof, but it definitely made a big difference in holding that down. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I also changed the back and put on this thicker. You can see there was what it was. There's what it is, and that's roughly the distance it was hanging down in the rear end. So that now should keep me, allow this thing to be level. So I'm going to lower this down, and I know where to line this thing up because I got the bolt holes also to help me line things up. We'll get everything lined up, get it put back together in there, and we'll be ready to go. Mother Nature is supposed to open up here in another hour or so with severe thunderstorms. So it's going to be more than enough time for me to get this back together. So I'll cut for here, and if anything else comes up while I'm putting this together, I'll shoot those pictures, let you know. So okay, here we are putting it back together. Those side bolts came in real handy for realigning it. When I put those in on both sides, I got it lined back up. But as I was showing earlier, is how much of this rubber is not underneath that flange. So another reason I'm thinking having this glued to the roof gives me that full width sealed down, because when I put the shroud over top of this rig, over this unit, it'll actually come over and actually help protect it. So the likelihood, I'm thinking, of water getting in between the top of the seal and the metal is very, very unlikely. So I'm going to go ahead and continue assembling this, but I just wanted to show that part of it to see what was going on here. Okay, and the other thing I was doing is, versus waiting until you fire this thing up to see if the condensation got some bottled water, and I went ahead and poured it into the tray, and the tray overflowed, and last time we would have had water all over inside of there, and now I don't have it. I'm going to splash it up beside it where the water would have went before, and again looking. Okay, well, here it is back together. Only thing I'm missing now is just got to put the cover on and clean up the garbage around it. Before I put the final cover on, though, I did have the wife go in there and turn the circuit breaker back on and turn the AC back on, and just wanted to make sure it was running before I went downstairs. Okay, so now I got the AC totally back together. I don't know if you can hear it or not. But one of the things I wanted to point out that I noticed on other videos is down here where this thing comes in, there's clips on the metal part. And with other videos I've seen, that thing wasn't underneath, and those clips are meant to hold the front down. I'll show you an example because of my other units. I have one. I believe this is one of them. Yeah, the clip right here. You see how it's out? This is supposed to be around it. And there's even a screw that's fell out from right there, which holds this whole thing together, which holds that in place. So yeah, make sure when you put the shroud back on, it goes over these, because that's designed to help hold this thing down. So hope that helps. You got any comments, good, bad, or the other? You know, better ways I could have done this, or what I shouldn't have done or should have done? By all means, let me know, because I'm planning on pulling these other ones apart too and taking a look at them and see if they're about to go. Okay. One other one I wanted to show you is I put that thicker pad in the back. So you see the gap we have here. If you go to the back, we have the same gap now. So now it's holding this level. If you remember when I showed this to begin with, the back end was almost touching the roof. It was down so low, which caused the front to pick up, which caused the leak. And now that leak was right here because it was pivoting, hinging on this. It allowed it, picked up on the front. These front bolts back here didn't hold it down well enough, and that's all she wrote. So again, you got any comments or suggestions, please let me know. Have a good day.